All right. Good to see y'all again. This should be a pretty simple message. There's really not a whole lot to really explain because whoever needs this, you really don't need me to break a lot of stuff down. You got the basics, but I need to give you that extra nudge of correction on your situation. The name of this sermon is going to be called Hey Rhett. It's not rocket scientist. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I've noticed something, and let me say this real quick. This sermon isn't about faith, it's specifically about having a right now faith, not just faith, but a now faith. And as I was thinking about some of the stuff that I'm about to talk to you about, I was just thinking on it, meditating on it, and I realized something, and it's this. For some reason, no matter how you speak, whether you speak kind of country or kind of ghetto or however you talk, it seems like people really like taking the name Rhett, Rhett, or however you spell it. Not everybody spells it the same, but people like to take the name Rhett and just use it all wrong. And what I mean is this: some people that may speak kind of country, when they say right now, sometimes they say right now, right? Like they say right, right? So they go right now, right? And then some people that may kind of talk kind of ghetto, instead of saying I'm ready to go right now, they'll say right now. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I am ready to go. Not ready to go. I'm ready to go. So you got ready now, and then you got ready to go. And it's funny because that's basically what I'm having to say in this sermon. You have to have a right now faith or a ready now faith. And when God gets ready to do what He wants you to do to fulfill your part, after He does His part, you have to be ready to go or ready to go. You know, you can't just sit around. You believe God for something, and when He does what He does, and He opens a door of opportunity up for you, or He allows you to be able to do something that you've been wanting Him to help you do, or achieve something, or gain, or accomplish something that you've been having faith for, believing for, He does His part, but you've got to be ready to go. So that's what this is about. So now you understand why I'm saying hey Rhett, as if I'm talking to somebody that's actually named Rhett, right? Since everybody else is just using his name, I'll do it too, whoever Rhett is. But the other part of this, the other part of the name is it's not rocket scientist. And some of you are probably thinking you're saying it wrong. The saying is it's not rocket science. Yes, I know, but I'm naming it this on purpose. It's not rocket scientist. I know it's incorrect from the saying, but this is why I named it that. So years ago, I used to go to this church, and the preacher was preaching, and he was talking about something, and he was trying to use the expression, it's like a breath of fresh air. You know, a lot of times when people say that, what they mean is, I've been inside for too long. I need to go outside and just, breathe some of the outdoor air. I just need a breath of fresh air, right? So he was trying to say that in the sermon, but he kept accidentally saying it wrong. You know how sometimes we get tongue tied and say our words wrong? He kept accidentally saying a breath air. He said, church is like a fresh breath air. And and people in the church were just kind of looking around, laughing at each other, kind of chuckling just a little bit, because they knew what he meant, but he said it wrong. So then later, while he's preaching, it was like he was trying to go back and correct himself, but he said it wrong again. It's like a fresher breath air. So he kept saying it wrong, even though he tried to get it right. And it was just so funny. Well, this year, I believe it was earlier this year, I was doing a sermon. I was recording one. And I don't remember what the sermon was, what it was about, what the name of it was. But I just remember that I had a similar moment. I was talking about something. And I tried to say, it's not rocket science, y'all. It's simple. But instead I said, it's not rocket scientist. And, I kind of felt kind of stupid because, well, you can't be telling somebody it's obvious it's not rocket science, but then you can't even say rocket science. You say rocket scientist. So now it makes it sound like you don't know what you're talking about. So how are you going to tell somebody else, hey, it's obvious, when you can't even say, you know what I mean? So, and I didn't even bother to correct myself. I knew I said it wrong, but I just kept going. I was just like, I already know where this is going. I'm going to try to correct myself and keep saying it wrong. So let me just move on. So I'm just kind of poking fun at myself in the title of this message. So, hey, Rhett, it's not rocket scientist. What I'm explaining is pretty simple. So, a couple of places to look at in Scripture. First place to look at is Hebrews chapter 11. And the first verse of this is a verse that's quoted a lot when talking about faith. But we look at this wrong. I've come to realize we look at this verse a little bit incorrect. It says this: now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. A lot of times when people ask, hey, what does faith mean? We quote this verse after the word is. We say, well, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That's the definition. And to an extent, it's correct, but technically we're wrong. What do I mean? Here's the thing. A lot of times we view this verse incorrectly because of how we've heard it preached or how we've heard it read. And because of how we've heard it preached and read, when we read it ourselves, we naturally start to read it wrong. And what I mean is this. A lot of times when people say this verse, they emphasize the word faith. And sometimes they'll pause right after the word now as if it has a comma after it. So what happens is we treat the word now as if it's an attention grabber, what I call an attention grabber. And what I mean by that is this. Let's say someone says, look, stop bothering me while I'm doing this. They're not really meaning for you to look at something as if you're saying, hey, look at that tree outside. They say look as an attention grabber. It's like they're saying something, a word, to get your attention before they say what it is that they're actually trying to say. So if it was written, it would be the word look with a comma and then all the rest of what they're saying. Look, don't bother me right now while I'm doing this. See how I kind of paused after the word look? It's just an attention grabber. And with attention grabbers, you can take that word away and the rest of the sentence by itself can be a perfect standalone sentence and still mean the same thing. So instead of saying, look, don't bother me while I'm doing this, you could just say, don't bother me while I'm doing this, and it still means really the same thing. You just use the word look to really get someone's attention to emphasize what you're trying to say. Similar to how oftentimes in the Gospels, Jesus would start out what he was saying by saying, verily, verily, blah, 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 blah. It's just a way of saying truly, truly, blah, 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 blah. He's letting you know ahead of time that what he's saying is something legit. You really need to hear it. But he could say the same thing without saying verily, verily, or truly, truly. And it'll still mean the same effect. Plus, it's Jesus. He's the way, the truth, and the life. So if he is the truth, everything that he says is the truth anyway. So we really don't necessarily need him to say verily, verily, or truly, truly, even though he does. We already know what he's saying is true. Truly, truly. But it's just something to really get your attention, to make sure that you really get the point that's about to be driven home. But you can still mean the same thing without that attention grabbing word. So it's the same thing here in Hebrews 11 verse 1. We treat now as if it's an attention grabbing word. We treat it as if there's a comma after it. We treat it as if the writer is saying now. Faith is a substance, blah, 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 right? See how I kind of paused after the word now? So we treat it as if it's just there to get our attention the way we would use the word now oftentimes. And then what he's simply saying is faith is blah, 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 blah. So that's why when many times when people ask what is faith, you might say faith is the substance of things hoped for, blah, 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 blah. But you leave off the word now because you feel, you see what I'm saying? You treat it like it's just an attention grabber. You treat it as if you can say the same thing without the word now and the sentence is going to still mean the same thing. But it's not. Why? Because now is not an attention grabber. Now in this sentence is more of an adjective. In other words, now is being used to describe the type of faith. So it's not now faith is the substance blah 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 blah. No, it's now faith. In other words, the emphasis, not only is there not a comma there, and not only is it not just a attention grabbing word, and not only is it something that has to be a part of this sentence for it to be accurate, but the emphasis should not be on faith. It shouldn't be now faith. It should be now faith. Emphasis on now, because that's the type of faith. It's a now faith, a faith that's right now. It's not just saying now to get your attention. It's the type of faith. It's a now faith. So listen again as I read it again, but emphasize now. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You may say, well, what's the big deal? Simple. If you notice, it says hoped. H-O-P-E-D. It'd be different if it was just H-O-P-E, hope. But H-O-P-E-D, hoped, shows a bit of a past tense. In other words, what I'm saying is it already has to be a faith that was already active for it to be the substance of things hoped for, ED. Right? There already had to be faith in action for this past tense hoped to be accurate. In other words, it can't be any type of faith. It can't be a later faith. It has to be right now. So in order for this sentence to truly be accurate, it has to, listen, we have to emphasize the now and know that it is not just something you can leave off. Only a now faith can be the substance of things hoped for, because you already had to have the faith. And you might be thinking, well, what do you mean by a later faith instead of a now faith? What I mean is this. Sometimes we lack faith, but sometimes the problem is not that we lack faith. Sometimes we save or we try to save our faith for a later time, because it's more comfortable for us. What I mean is this. We'll believe God for something and we'll have faith for something, but in us it's almost like we're thinking, okay, I believe for God for this, or for him to do that, or for him to help me with this or that, but right now my finances aren't looking so good, so let me get my finances in order first, and then I'm gonna believe for blah 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 blah. Or, I'm believing God for da 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 da, but right now my family life ain't looking so good, so I don't know if it's a good idea for me to try to ask God for that right now. I need to be more concerned about what's going on here with my family. Things are not quite stable, or things are kind of missing. It's like some puzzle pieces are missing, but let me get the perfect family portrait looking type family. Let me try to make us look so perfect. Let me get right. Let me marry the perfect person for the perfect child first, or let me make sure my kids are making the best grades real quick, or let me make sure we got to make sure everything looks good first before we try to ask for something or believe God for something. Well, I don't quite have this together in my life. Things in the workplace aren't going so good, but this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get all this together first, and then when I look good to everybody on the job, and when I look good to the general public, when I look good to my friends, and when I look good on Facebook and social media, when I can make everybody think that I got it together, then I go and pray to God about what I've been believing for, and I have the faith for it. See, that's where oftentimes we mess up. We've got all this faith, but it's like we take it and we kind of tuck it away. We store it away, and we try to fix everything ourselves, and we want everything to be perfect. And then we want to go and say, okay, God, so I'm believing for this, and I have been believing for it, but I didn't pray for it because I wanted to make sure that everything appears good for the general public. But now that it's looking kind of good, I was kind of wondering if you would bless me with blah, blah, blah. So many times we have faith, but we tuck it away for a later time to try to activate when we should have a right now faith. That doesn't mean that we should not want to try to, live life to the fullest and try to get our lives together and just let our lives be a mess. I'm not saying that, but whatever happened to coming to God as you are, whatever happened to coming to Jesus as you are and letting him fix you and work some stuff out in you versus trying to get it all together yourself and then believing God for something. So now you get what I'm saying. There's a difference between a right now faith and a later faith, or a lazy faith, or an eventual faith. It's a right now faith that is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that's what you need. Whoever this is for, whoever needs this, it's not that you don't have faith. It's not that you don't know what faith is. I don't have to give you a whole lecture on faith. I don't have to go through a whole bunch of verses in the Bible and stories in the Bible to show you what faith is. You got it. The only thing is you need to activate it now. Not wait till this and not wait till that. And no, just right now. Just have faith right now. Activate it now. A now faith. Let's keep going. Verse 2, for by it the elders obtained a good report. Verse 3, through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. We know in Genesis, at the beginning of the Bible, at the beginning of it all, God spoke things into existence. There was darkness, but God said, let there be light. He spoke light. He spoke the heavens and the earth into existence. He spoke this universe into existence. He made something out of nothing. Many of us have faith. And many times, if someone were to ask you, what character of the Bible to you has the biggest amount of faith, you might say Moses or Abraham or whoever. But really, God is the one who has the most faith, because we have reference points. We look at certain things we like and say, God, I'd like that. I'd like that car. I'd like that house. I'd like that type of marriage. I'd like this. I'd like that. And even when it comes to creating things ourselves, sometimes we use a reference point. We look at a car that's already made and we say, hey, I want to make a car similar to that, but I want to do this and this and that to it, tweak it, make my own version of it, put the remix on it. We just want to put a remix on everything, like the rappers, right? We have reference points. God, when he created, had no reference points. He made something out of nothing. He spoke things into existence. Do you know how much faith? Listen, I know people, we preach all the time about having power in the tongue. But we know we have power because the word lets us know it. But God He is the Word. It wasn't like he was just sitting there reading the Bible one day and da da da. Oh wow, I wonder if I have this power. Like, it's God. He already had the faith in him. He's the Father of faith. He already had the faith in him to know that if he spoke something, it would happen. That his word was not going to return unto him void. It was going to do what it was set out to do. So he spoke things in total darkness, no reference point. He didn't look at this and say, well, I want to make something like that. No, he made the original of originals. No reference point. That's faith. That's faith. That's the type of faith inventors have. Man, it would be a cool idea for this right here. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but let me start drawing some stuff and charting it out to just try to make something out of nothing. So my point is, if the God that we serve, if the God that we have faith in, if his faith is so big that he doesn't even have a reference point, he doesn't have to have permission, he doesn't have to listen, he doesn't have to go by the laws of gravity or the laws of the land, or you know what I mean? He's not bound by time and space like we are. You know, he's outside of it. He created this, so he's not bound by all these limitations that we are. So if the God that we have faith in is that type of a God, that he has that great of a faith and is not bound by the things that we are, why is it that we feel so many times like we have to try to fix all these things and make things look picture perfect before going to him, when he could fix so much stuff for us at the start? We just slow things down when we do that. So what I'm saying is, you have to have a right now faith. Okay? It's not rocket scientist. There's nothing rocket scientist about any of this. Not science, scientist. There's nothing rocket scientist about it. It's so simple. It's oh so simple. Go with me to John. Last place to look at. John chapter 5, starting at verse 2. Familiar story to many of us, the pool of Bethesda. Let's look at this. John 5, verse 2, it says this. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then first after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And a certain man was there which had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed and walked, and on the same day was the Sabbath. So what's going on here? We know this story. It's this big pool, big body of water, people laid out all around this pool. And all these people have something wrong with them that they need a healing from. And so they sit around this pool, and the reason why is because every so often an angel shows up and stirs the water. And when this angel stirs up the water, they've noticed this pattern where when the angel stirs up the water, whoever gets in the water first gets to be healed. So it's always like a race to see who's gonna get there first at the right time, who's gonna be there at the right time to see it, to hurry up and get there. And it's just a waiting game. You don't get there, you just gotta be waiting. People easily just jump in front of you, jump in line, jump ahead of you. If you're not looking, not paying attention, it's crazy, you know. It's like a real life, like, board game. Like, I just thought about that. This is like a real life game. This is like some new Monopoly type stuff, like like, pass go to jail, get out free, this and that. Like, you know how you roll a dice and you can go, and if you roll a big enough number, you get to go over somebody. Like, you take your token and go over. That's like what this is. It's like, if you can't get in first, or if you're not fast enough, or if you can't walk to get in the pool, you gotta like hope somebody comes and picks you up in time to put you in, and if not, somebody else goes right over you and just get in before you. It's just a real life game. It's just a real life board game, basically. So that's what's going on. And there's a particular guy that Jesus has compassion for, and he goes up to him and he's saying, will you be made whole? He's saying to this guy, hey, I'm the answer. Will you be made whole? I'm gonna help you out. But if you listen to his response, instead of saying, yes, Jesus, help me, he said, well, I would be made whole, but the problem is every time I get ready to get in this pool, there's no one to help me in the pool. So many times people look at this story from different angles, different perspectives. Oftentimes we look at it like this. Oftentimes we look at it as, well, he lacked faith. Some people look at it as, well, he had faith, but his faith wasn't at the level it should have been. Different ways to look at it. But for the sake of this sermon, you could say this. He had faith, but he did not have a right now faith. Because think about it. Instead of saying, yes, I do want to be made whole right now, Jesus, help me. He had faith, but he had faith for things to play out at a particular time. In other words, he was thinking, okay, certain things have to play out a certain way first, and then I can be made whole. I have to get somebody to help me in the pool, and then if I get there first, then I can be made whole. So it's not that he doesn't think he can be healed. So he's got the faith. Oh my goodness. The problem is he's lacking a right now faith. It's just not right now. That's it. That should have been somebody just walk up out of Jesus should have just walked up to the scene with some tight Wrangler jeans on. Some cowboy boots, the cowboy hat, the belt with the unnecessarily big buckle on it. You know what I'm talking about? Some guns on the sides of his waist, like he's supposed to have a shootout in the old Western movies. Wow, 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 wee, wee, wow, wow, wow. You know how they have the little tumbleweeds floating around the town road with the saloon. Anyway. But he should have came on the scene and just with a real country accent. The problem, son, is you gotta have some right now. You gotta have some right now faith. Your faith has to be right now. But anyway, have some skull. The chewing tobacco all on the side of his face. No, I'm just joking. Oh, but anyway, you get my point. He just needed the right now faith. So whoever this is for, whatever you need, God's on the scene. He can help you, but you have to have the right now faith. In other words, don't give God all the 50 billion reasons why what you want can't happen now, because then you're making the problem or the situation or the scenario bigger than God. But God, it's bigger. He's literally and figuratively bigger. Okay, so there's that. But look at what it says in verse 8 again. Jesus saith unto him, rise, take up thy bed and walk. So not only did he have to have a right now or right now faith, he had to be at a point where he was ready to get up and go. He had to be ready to go. Because he said, take up your bed and walk. In other words, now that I've healed you, do the very thing you couldn't do. He couldn't get up and walk. So since he couldn't get up and walk, now that he can, he's like, get up, walk. Matter of fact, to top it all off, pick up the very thing that was your dead weight, because you're strong enough to lift it now. So have a Rhett now faith and be Rhett to go. When God says, hey, I'm going to help you, I'm going to make a way for you, I'm going to provide an opportunity for you, I'm doing it because you have a Rhett now faith. But you also got to be Rhett to go to do what it is that you need to do for your end, to fulfill your end of what you're trying to accomplish. So there's that. But now let's look at this, because there's another point that needs to be made. Starting at verse 9 again, it says, and immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked, and on the same day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, it is the Sabbath day, it is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. He answered them, he that made me whole, the same said unto me, take up thy bed and walk. Then asked they him, what man is that which said unto thee, take up thy bed and walk? And he that was healed wist not who it was, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, a multitude being in that place. Okay. The guy, he has taken up his bed to walk. He had the Rhett now faith now, and he was Rhett to go. He gets up, he walks, and as he's walking, we'll just put it this way, some naysayers, some people that always got something to say about Jesus and his ministry and what he does, they always got something negative to say. They always got to be just so judgmental and hypocritical about everything. They always got to just nitpick everything. They got to try to find flaws in everything he does. They're all butthurt because this guy is walking around carrying his bed on the day of rest. So in other words, they would rather him just stay on the bed and rest than get up and walk, instead of being like, wow, awesome, this is a miracle. So since they're just so stuck up, they're seeing this and they're all butthurt about it, and they're thinking, okay, let's get something started here. So they keep questioning this guy that has gotten up and started walking. They can't be happy for him, they can't celebrate for him. You'd think they would cheer for him, but they don't. They just got to question him. Well, why are you carrying your bed on this day? This is the Sabbath day. This is the day of rest. I mean, they're just drilling him. Let me say this. You're going to have some people that if God does something for you, he heals you, or he gives you a miracle, or he gives you an opportunity to do something that you've always wanted to do, or something that others feel more entitled to be able to do, but he's giving you the vision for it, or whatever. You got to understand that when you get that Rhett now faith and you are Rhett to go, that when you start walking and the very thing that was holding you down, now you're holding it up like it's just lightweight, like it's no big deal. Some of the very people that you think should be happy for you and cheering for you and celebrating that everything's good, they're going to be the main ones standing there crossed like this, with the arms folded and crossed, with the face, looking funny, feeling some type of way, mad at you because you're doing good instead of just continuing to sit still. So their way of dealing with it is to try to fault find and nitpick and have something negative to say and try to tear down what you're trying to build up, because they would rather you still be sick and lame and tired and sad and depressed and upset and suicidal and throwing up and not knowing where your next meal's coming from and this and that. They would rather you just be still than progress. And so you've got to understand that there will be people that are like that, but it's not about changing their mind, because you have a mission. When you get what you believe for, you have a mission. It has to be mission impossible for you. You cannot let what others say sink in. But now, the other thing is this, and I love this. I was talking about the perspective of the man that picked up the bed and walked, but now here's something that you have to look at from the perspective of Jesus real quick. These people are questioning the man, but before they can try to question Jesus and be like, how dare you heal this man, because they're always questioning Jesus. It's the same type of people like the Pharisees and the scribes and all these people. They always got to question Jesus. But before they can go and harass him like they just love to do, in verse 13 it says that Jesus conveyed himself away. I love how that was written, how that was translated. Because oftentimes in the Bible, it'll just say that somebody left, that they fled, or some other way of saying, they left that spot and went somewhere else. But I love how in here, in this particular spot, it says that Jesus conveyed himself. The thing that came to my mind when I read this was a conveyor belt. Like if you're at a factory or something, you know how it is. You have the conveyor belt that all the merchandise is supposed to ride down. Or like if you're at some store like Walmart or something and you set something that, you know how it is. You set it there on the little conveyor belt and the cashier presses the button and it just keeps going and going until it gets to where it needs to be. And then they press the button and it stops. It was like Jesus, it was almost as if, and this is how I imagined it in my mind, it's almost as if Jesus really, for real, got on a conveyor belt and just stood there and just went forward. He didn't look around. He acted just like an inanimate object that was placed on a conveyor belt. In other words, he didn't look around. He wasn't curious about what people had to say or how folks were looking at him. He was just He just conveyed himself like he was just an object set on a conveyor belt that was on a mission that wasn't going to stop until he got to his destination where the button would be pressed for him to stop. That's how you have to be. You got to be as if you really were on an actual real conveyor belt, and you just got to let God just convey you from one place to the next. Anytime you get around these people that all they want to do is put doubt in you, oh girl, yeah, you don't need to go for that job. It's your dream. It's been your dream since 1901. You weren't even alive in 1901, but somehow that's been your dream since 1901, even though you weren't even alive yet. But that's not the point. But that's been your dream forever. And now you got the chance to do something you really want to do. But then you got them people, them frenemies. And all they want to, girl, you know you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Some of them, you too pretty for that, girl. And then if that don't work, girl, you know you not good looking enough for that, girl. Y'all know how some people are. They try different stuff to see what's gonna get you. Like they'll say one thing, but then the next minute they gonna say, you see what I'm saying? One minute you're too ugly, the next minute you're too pretty. That's all they know. All they know is they gotta figure out what exactly it is they need to say to get you to sit still when really you need to be on the conveyor belt just moving forward. Just but you know, or maybe they say, girl, we know you've been eyeing him for a long time, but you don't need to, you don't need to get with him. He probably ain't no good. He probably just some player. He probably now you didn't watch this guy since 1856. Neither one of y'all was alive. I'm just having fun. I'm just being funny. Neither one of y'all was alive in 1856, but that's besides the point. The point is, you've been watching him for a long time. You've really been watching. You've been eyeing. You've been wanting to go out on a date. You've been wanting to talk to him. You feel like this could be the one, but here come everybody. Oh, I don't know. And it's not that they got a legit reason, really. They just don't want to see you happy. They've made a person out to be someone that they're not. Cause I'll even say this: You probably got friends right now that if they were brave enough, they'd be going after that guy. But because they're too worried about what other people think and say, they're not going to make the move, but they don't want you to make the move either. They just want you to sit still when you need to be on the conveyor belt. Just convey, just get on that belt and just slide, just slide on forward. That's all you got to do. Just move forward. Just keep going forward like nobody's around you, like you can't hear nothing, just like an inanimate object just sitting there on the belt, just going forward. You don't move or say nothing until you get to the destination. Just let yourself be conveyed. You just start being like Jesus. Just convey yourself from that negative situation, from that negative talk, and just move forward. Whatever it is for you, whatever it is, whoever this is for, whoever needs this message, you just need to just get on that factory Shears conveyor belt, Medallion conveyor belt, Walmart conveyor belt, Fred's Dollar Store conveyor belt, wherever Dollar Tree, wherever the conveyor belt is, you just need to just be on that conveyor belt, and you just need to just be conveyed. Just having fun. But you get my point. You get my point. Using that as an example to get the point across. So let me wrap all this up by simply saying this again. It's not just faith that you have to have, because it can't be a later faith. It can't be a lazy faith. It can't be a maybe kind of sort of faith. It can't be an eventual faith. You have to have a right now faith, right? And you got to be ready to go. Ready to go. I don't know who Rhett is, but you got to be ready to go. So right now, ready to go. And lastly, be conveyed. In other words, just block it out. Just tune out all the negative opinions of people that just don't want you to get what you want, because really they want it, but we ain't gonna go there. But just but get what you know is yours. Whatever you've been eyeing, whatever you've been waiting for, whatever you've been believing for, praying for, hoping for, dreaming for at night, whatever it is, go for it. You'll never know unless you finally go for it. You'll never know. You got to be willing to take the risk. You've got to be a risk taker. And I'll even say this. You probably got people right now that are just waiting for you to make your move. They've been put in position. They've been divinely put in positions, and they're waiting for you to make the moves that you need to make to press forward. They're just waiting. They're just waiting. They've been waiting for you. 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 All you got to do is when God makes that way for you, you just got to be ready to go and be conveyed. So I hope I got all my points across. I thank you all for tuning in and listening, and I'll pray us out of here. Heavenly Father, I thank you for another opportunity to minister another word. Lord, I pray that those who need this message would tune in and receive this word. Lord, just have your way, God. And I just pray that those, that the naysayers, I'll put it that way, that the naysayers and those frenemies and all these people that would rather start trouble and keep good things from starting, I say, Lord, let the mouths of those naysayers be shut in the name of Jesus, so that what you have in store for your people can be manifested. I give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.